Malcolm's big day out. He put down the mail. It was so unfair, those awful tax people hassling him. Imagine still having to pay tax when you're in the golden years of your life. And how had they found out he had so much money in the first place? His hands were still shaking when the phone rang. It was the building society.
Hello, is that Mr. Malcolm Tripp? This is Terry Rowbottom from Yorkshire Friends of Mutual Greed. I've got news about your bond. It's matured and we'd like to discuss way forward.
I'll drop by right away, answered an excited Malcolm. Nothing motivated Malcolm like money, and so minutes later, hat, gloves, and free bus pass in hand, he was on his way to the town centre. Terry Rowbottom greeted Malcolm with that oily insincerity which many in the financial world summon up effortlessly.
I see that 3 years ago you deposited £50,000 in our triple bond, the pensioners' pot o' plenty. Well, I'm delighted to tell you that it's now worth £50,000 and 87p. Any idea what you'd like to do with it?
Without waiting to hear, Terry continued.
Bearing in mind your senior status, Mr. Tripp, I'd like to recommend the new Centenarians Coffer of Cash. As more of us are living to see our telegram from Queen, Mutual Greed feels that those final decades of vegetative stage shouldn't be starved of brass. You'll get a competitive rate of interest too, at least 0.001% per year.
Malcolm had been a long-time customer of Yorkshire Greed. He fixed Rowbottom's eyes.
Do I get a freebie? When I signed up for last bond, I got a free metal detector, specially adapted to reveal only money. What are you offering now?
Terry quickly realised he'd met his match.
Well, we are giving away free gifts, fondue sets and that sort of stuff, and free entry to great local attractions. The passes admit 2 people to such places as Castle Howard, York Minster, Haywood, and for first time, Grasping House.
Terry leaned over towards Malcolm and lowered his voice.
It seems the Broomhandle family have hit hard times and are opening their gaff to the public. It's a great chance to visit one of Yorkshire's largest piles.
Malcolm squirmed uneasily on his seat. Large Yorkshire piles had visited him recently.
OK, I'll sign up. Now you've had my £50,000 for 3 years, I'll have one of your coffees, if you don't mind.
Terry snapped his fingers and dispatched some minion to bring the coffee. Presently, both men sat silently sipping out of polystyrene cups a hot liquid which had all the bouquet of burning tyres. But it was free. Back home, Malcolm couldn't wait to break the news to his parents.
I'm taking you both on a day out to Grasping House. They're open to public for first time.
Malcolm's aged father, Alf, wasn't impressed.
I was there during war with me broken arm. It were convalescent home then. I hate the bloody place.
Malcolm shrewdly drew his mother to one side.
Dad might be a problem,
he hissed in a whisper that could be heard in the neighbouring county.
So, I've got this pass for 2 people, but I can get the 3 of us in. Here's the plan. While you're at cash desk, I'll whisk Dad past in wheelchair, unnoticed.
If we are spotted, I'll say I've got to get him to loo quick before he makes a mess on their new floor. Alice Tripp was at one with her son in the art of saving money, and never looking too closely at the ethics of any situation that generated gain. Now that she was on board with the scheme, all other resistance was futile. So Alf surrendered himself to be dressed and taken out for the day to a place he loathed. The Tripp family arrived at Grasping House in good time, just as the pay desk was opening. Malcolm parked up. "Now remember what I said, Mum. Go to cashier with this voucher and repeat what I told you." He manhandled the crumpled form of his snoozing father out of the car and into the wheelchair. Alice Tripp, the decoy, hobbled over to the cashier. "Tickets for 2, she demanded emphatically, continuing, "and there's nowt to pay because we've got this special voucher. I say, did you hear? We've got this—" "Yes!" the sales assistant screamed, then pursed her lips. My God, was the rest of the day going to be like this? Meanwhile, the 2 male members of the Tripp clan slunk past and headed for the toilets, where old Alf was soon installed in the shiny new facility for the disabled. "Now take your time, Dad, and I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'm just going to check on Mum, see how she's doing." The library of Grasping House was buzzing. A bizarre assortment of fossilised men and women, every bit as threadbare as the books on the shelves, was preparing to guide the public on its first visit to the stately home. In their midst, giving last-minute directions, was the imposing figure of Hermione Broomhandle, and gazing adoringly at the noble lady was a rather liverish old woman with a clipboard, gushing. "May I say what an honour this is, ma'am, though all my friends and I are deeply sorry that you were driven to opening this magnificent house to the British public." The creature's face took on the appearance of one who had recently trodden in feces, and the same look of pained revulsion was taken up by Hermione. "Well, as you all knew, we were driven to it. The tourist board were adamant. You must open the house. After all, Grasping is at the heart of Yorkshire." "Will you be on hand, ma'am?" came another grovelling inquiry. "Certainly not," stormed the aristocrat. "I have no intention of breaking bread with hoi polloi. In the unlikely event I'm needed, I shall be in the lavender room." So saying, her ladyship made her way to quarters on the first floor, where her daughter, Cressida, was waiting with a surprise visitor. "Mother, Rupert's here," trilled the giddy girl. Hermione looked intently at the orange-haired youth. Yes, he did look a little like a young Prince Harry, but with more social awareness. "So good of you to come, my dear. We need all the support we can get on this ghastly day. How's your aunt? Is she busy at court?" "Oh, Freddie's fine. She sends her apologies for not being here, but she's attending a capital punishment workshop and couldn't be spared." All 3 paused for a moment, as if in prayer, and reflected on glorious times past, when there were many offences carrying the death penalty, and an almost equal number of ways of executing it. Hermione Broomhandle was not a handsome woman. She exhibited that trait the English aristocracy have of freakish genetic imperfection. Sadly, daughter Cressida bore a tragic resemblance to her mother.
Hermione looked first at her, then at Rupert, and mused on what might be the outcome of adding that clownish orange hair to the family's already dubious genetics.
"Mother, may Rupie and I go riding?" asked Cressida.
"Oh, darling, no. I can't allow it. The stables are just about the only place not trampled over by the public. Let Hermes at least have some peace."
Hermione took up her needlepoint, sat in the window, and dismissed the youngsters with a wave. Cressida signalled to Rupert to withdraw to her bedroom. Having reached the boudoir, she drew the blinds, put on some music, then flopped dramatically onto the bed.
"So, what shall we do?"
she inquired archly, believing that for any red-blooded male there could be but one response. But Rupert, whose proclivities remained yet unknown to her, answered sulkily,
"Well, I had wanted to go riding."
Cressida, a young woman scorned, jumped to her feet, her mood changing at once.
"Very well. Let's go to the stables and see Hermes."
Rupert shuffled after her, hands in pockets, his baggy jeans making him look rather comical. But as they crossed the courtyard, both heard a distressed sound coming from the disabled toilet. Cressida, finding the incident of no interest, proceeded on her way, but Rupert paused to listen.
"Let me out, somebody! I'm trapped in here!"
came the muffled cry. Rupert drew close to the door and rattled the handle, but without result.
"There must be a button to push or a cord to pull that will release you," he called to the prisoner inside.
Cressida stopped, turned, and with her head tilted.
"It's a cord."
The news was duly relayed. Seconds later the door glided magisterially sideways, and old Alf Tripp wheeled himself out, accompanied by a rather unwholesome odour. Cressida looked mortified, and to her irritation it appeared that Rupert appeared to want to talk to the man. With a toss of her head, she announced that she'd be in the stables, and flounced off.
"Should I take you back into the house?" Rupert asked Alf.
"I suppose," Alf replied. "If you use that door over in the corner, we should be able to avoid stairs and come a bit way kitchen."
Rupert was somewhat puzzled at Alf's apparent knowledge of the house's layout, but was too disinterested to question further. And once inside, he judged it best to deposit this creaking load in the library. "I must leave the wheelchair outside. I'll put it beside the visitors' tables near the cafeteria. Is that okay?"
"Where?"
"The visitors' tables." Alf nodded vaguely and supported himself against the wall as the young man disappeared out of doors, pushing his wheelchair. All the while, Malcolm and his mother had made good progress through the house, but both now agreed it was time for a cup of tea.
"A little of this stately home stuff goes a long way," observed Alice.
Old Mrs. Tripp had approached one of the guides, an elderly vicar's wife who glowed with excitement when she supposed her compendious knowledge on Chippendale was about to be put to the test. Sadly, Alice only wanted to know where the toilets were. Malcolm, feeling it necessary to make the vicar's wife feel better, asked where they might get some tea, but his mother interrupted.
"I've got me flask, you daft lump. We're not paying them prices. We can sit here. Nobody'll mind if we just have a quick cuppa."
So Mother and son, united in their love of tea and dislike of paying for it, sat in an alcove near to the study and poured themselves cups. But a passing functionary from the tourist board had other ideas.
"I'm sorry, but you can't sit there supping tea. We've a cafeteria for refreshments. This is a heritage site, not a truck stop."
Malcolm took his mother's arm before she had time to savage the official, but he was too late.
"If my husband were here now, he'd box your ears, old as you are."
That reminded Malcolm.
"Oh, no, we've forgotten about Dad. Come on, Mum."
Mercifully, they were quite near the library and quickly spotted the motionless figure of old Alf seated beside a suit of armour, though there seemed more life in the armour.
"How did you get here? And where's your chair, Dad?"
His son continued, sounding alarmed.
"Oh, some young lad brought me, but he's taken chair outside."
Malcolm turned pale yellow.
"But me camera's tied to chair handle. Didn't you see where he went?"
The loss of anything was anathema to Malcolm, but his camera? His mother had presented it to him days earlier for his birthday. It was extra special. His eyes rolled in his head as he reflected on the loss.
"Well, where'd he put your chair, Dad?"
he pleaded with Alf.
I think he said something about stables. Or were it tables?"
his father replied. The courtyard was busy with tourists as Malcolm tore across it, arms flailing like Don Quixote. The stable block was quite well signposted, but was shown as out of bounds to the public, as well it might be. For, inside, Rupert was busy grooming Hermes, a handsome thoroughbred, while Miss Cressida, having relieved Rupert of his loose-fitting jeans, was on her knees busy grooming him. It was into this hothouse of horseplay and passion that Malcolm blundered. Spotting the red-haired youth, he blurted out,
"Excuse me, do you know anything about me dad's wheelchair?"
Cressida disconnected herself from her ministrations and fell back onto the hay. Rupert, semi-naked, stared at Malcolm while trying to adjust himself.
"What the hell are you doing here?"
Good question. Not for the first time had Malcolm seen couples in a similar position of sexual congress, though usually men. But right now, his only concern was the missing camera. Just what was it that got the horse so flustered? It may have been the vigorous brushing. It may even have been the hot sexual antics of the teenagers. But my money's on Malcolm and his verbal braying. At any rate, Hermes reared up and took immediate opportunity to escape that voice. He bolted.
"You moron!"
Cressida screamed at the elderly schoolteacher. From the courtyard came a heady mix of sounds, hooves on cobbles, whinnying, alarms, the odd scream, and a lot of shouting. A pleasant day out in the country was fast becoming the circus of death. Tourists scattered to the edge of the courtyard, finding refuge where they could. And two elderly people could be seen forging their way across the yard. Alf was leaning heavily on his wife, pointing with a stick to where his wheelchair was.
"Over there. The chair's over by visitors' tables,"
Alf emphasized. Catching sight of his parents, Malcolm made a beeline. Alice grabbed her son's arm and shook it with slight irritation. "There's your camera, over there in your dad's chair. Stop making such a fuss. It wasn't a dear one anyway. Nobody'd pinch it." Glumly, Malcolm made his way over to the chair, picked up the camera and began to fondle it. Alice moved closer to Alf and lowered her voice. "I wish you wouldn't make such a fuss about that camera. It were a free gift from Building Society, Yorkshire Greed. If you introduce someone who signs up for the Centenarian's coffer of cash, you get a gift. Well, that's where I got his camera." Alf was now asleep, but she pressed on. "He thinks I bought it, so don't spoil the surprise. Come on, let's get home for some tea. The whole day's been a waste of time. Ruddy old books and suits of armour. We could have been to bingo and won some money." Thank you for listening. That's been Chapter 3 of Malcolm's Big Day Out, Malcolm and the Rent Boy, available on smashwords.com, Apple, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other good ebook providers. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.